and some things that should not have been forgotten were lost. History became legend, legend became myth, and...
All right. I just finished this. Don't have much of a voice right now, but I at least can tell you some of my thoughts on this book. That little thing was rolling through my mind as I was reading this. That quote that, we have these legends books of Star Wars, and I'm sure people have made the same sort of comparison. I'm new to the Star Wars novels. This is my third one. I've only done Light of the Jedi, which I liked well enough. Not that's part of the canon, I suppose. And then I did Path of Destruction, Darth Bane trilogy, which is part of this, has this legend band. And also I just finished reading Heir to the Empire, which also has this little legend band. And in my mind, I can't think of a better continuation of the original trilogy that I love so much than this one here, that it's taken me however long to finally get to it. When was this written? 1991, I think. Man, it was just right around the corner for me to enjoy, and I just haven't done it. So from now on, I think, even though I am going to keep reading some of these other ones that aren't considered legends, in my mind, this is what happened following the trilogy, and I couldn't be more excited. I have some other ones that I want to get to. I am for sure going to get to the rest of this trilogy. I don't know if I'm going to get to it immediately, even though I'm kind of ready for it. But I am looking at some of these other ones, and I want to give just some quick thoughts, just in general, how much I appreciated this. I always kind of thought that all of the Star Wars books have always, it's had the political aspect, especially within the prequel trilogies. I think that's a part of why people kind of dislike them so much, is it's pretty heavy-handed on the political aspect, even though I think that is such a major part of the whole story. I've always kind of expected it to be, the dark wizard against the good wizards, the Jedi versus the Sith. And so this is the first of the Thrawn Trilogy, which people, is my first. I've never seen Thrawn. I've never watched any of the TV shows where he might have popped up, and I've never read anything about him. I never knew anything about him, and he's not this dark Sith Lord. Just a little bit of context of what you'd be getting into if you read this, although there's probably been a million movies or videos about this subject, but I want to give mine from the point of view of someone who's really just getting into this sort of thing, and I've only read the one Thrawn book. The Empire has just not totally fallen, as in it's been crumbled to nothing, but it's basically been taken out of its golden age, or whatever you would call it. In history, we have, even though like Egypt would have fallen from its golden age, it still existed, and same with like Rome and stuff like that. And so right here at the start, we have, the emperor has died. I don't know, this has been like 5 years later, and there are still Imperials out there. But a lot of the really high-ranking ones, not all of them, but a lot of the really competent officers and things died, working on the Emperor's main ship or whatever. Whatever. Give me some grace for not having all the details. But there's this Thrawn guy who is a high officer, and he's brilliant guy, and very, very competent. And as I was reading this, I was thinking, I used to read a lot of, I used to get into, history was my thing. It still is my thing. And I got into this thing where I was reading I got really into reading ancient letters, between like emperors like Trajan and governors, from like pharaohs from Egypt to people up in wherever. Sometimes they're very dry and just bland, but you can see how specifically with the Roman letters, there is a high level of competency within the administration that, a big part of why they were able to flourish so well is they were very competent administrators. And so I got that vibe from this rather than it just being like the Dark Lord is kind of ruling over because of fear and whatever, but he has the most power. It reminds me that Tarkin was, I think, outranked Vader, right? Is that right? But we have this guy here who is very, very, very competent, where he can make do with the kind of the lower level, the not the high pedigree officers, but he's going to kind of rebuild things through his brilliance and stuff. And he can look at the art of some nation and kind of deduce where their technology would have kind of risen to, and some of their military stuff. It's kind of cool. It's kind of like a dark Sherlock Holmes. And I really liked that aspect, that we were dealing with him rather than necessarily the next dark Sith to kind of come on board. So through him and sort of this continuation, and another reason why I would consider this canon and what I will consider canon at least is, we have Han and Leia and Luke and Chewie and Lando, and we have and Akbar, and we have these people still interacting together, even though, it's not like we get to the sequels and they're all just on different areas and never get to even have one scene together. It still has that feeling of familiarity of what we would expect from these characters that we've come along with. And so I was so happy about that. I'm very curious about where this is going to go. This Thrawn character himself, I think people call it the Thrawn Trilogy. It's not that he can't make use of the Force or Jedi. He can still use them to his benefit and finds, there's ways of kind of nullifying the effectiveness within this on people like Luke or, on Jedi. And I found that very interesting. We'll kind of be reintroduced to some or come revisit a couple of our favorite locations, which I thought was great, and give more context on why those locations were, why people were specifically at that location. And I don't want to give things away, even though I'm the last person to literally understand some of this stuff. I on a side note tangent, I've had to keep away from reviews because people are a little bit too open with things that they consider just a given of what happens in certain books. And I've already been spoiled on like 3 different books. Just within like 2 sentences, someone gave away blah, 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 blah. And so I specifically regarding Vector Prime, which I haven't read, so I know kind of a big thing that happens that I wish I didn't yet, but So if you are interested in my first kind of discovery through this, some of these Legends books and some of the Disney canon books, make sure to subscribe. I am a little bit of a mood reader, where I will go to sci-fi and I'll go to fantasy, I'll go to classics and a whole bunch of things, going through the Dark Tower at the moment. But this is going to be another one where I'm glad that I've kind of discovered what was right in front of my face for so long. Like a lot of my friends would read these. But really great. I thought this one would be a good starting point. Even I don't know if I loved it more than, I kind of liked Path of Destruction equally as much. But in terms of a large kind of, what am I trying to say? A more expansive kind of progression of what's happening at a galactic level. Heir to the Empire was fantastic, and I thought there were so many good moments and added characters. I finally know who Mara Jade is. Keep hearing that name going around. I finally have my first introduction to her. Thrawn, what was his name? Cardi. I don't know how to even pronounce it, but a bunch of different stuff, and I thought it was really, really great and really hooked me to go into the next one. So I think if you haven't read any of these and you still kind of are maybe a little disillusioned at the newer Star Wars movies, I think this is a place that you should give a shot to. I'm really looking forward to going through a number of these. So anyway, I don't want to go too long on this, and I don't really have a whole bunch of expansive thoughts on it other than I liked it a lot. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.